Any tribulation in our future is not biblical. That's because the biblical tribulation was not predicted for our future. Jesus predicted the tribulation for the near future of his disciples. In Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, we find Jesus standing before the temple buildings speaking to his disciples. He told them the temple would be torn down and not one stone would be left standing. His disciples asked, "When would this be? What would be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Now Jesus was speaking to his disciples. He answered their question about when this would be. He was not speaking to you and I today. He was speaking to his disciples 2,000 years ago. He warned them exactly when to leave so they could escape the coming tribulation that all would suffer if they didn't get out in time. This would happen in their own generation, in their near future, and before all of them passed away. He went on to describe that tribulation that would occur before the temple would be torn down. And now in Luke 21:20, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, you will know its desolation is near. It is pretty clear the tribulation Jesus described occurred before the desolation of Jerusalem. Now Jerusalem was laid desolate in AD 70. I wanted to compare this tribulation to documentation from the New Testament and Wars of the Jews written by Josephus after the war. For those things Jesus described before, during, and ending this tribulation, I will give a check if this detail is documented. Number 1, the disciples will be arrested and brought to trial and be witnesses to governors and kings who persecute them. Check. Number 2, the gospel will be preached throughout the world. Check. Number 3, the beginning of birth pangs will be false messiahs, wars, famines, and earthquakes. Check. Number 4, lawlessness would increase, Christians would be hated, many would turn away from the faith and betray each other, many believers would be put to death. Check. Number 5, Jerusalem would be laid desolate, armies would surround Jerusalem. Then was the time to flee. It would be dreadful, there would be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until then, and never would be equaled again. Check. Number 6, they would fall by the sword and be led captive to all nations. Check. Number 7, Jesus said there would be a great tribulation such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. Matthew 24:21. After reading Josephus's Jewish wars from AD 65 to 73, a worse tribulation is hard to imagine. Josephus confirmed the distress was such as had not occurred since the beginning of the world. Check. Now in my book, Prophecy Paradox, the case for first century end time, provides all the references needed, including a short synopsis of Josephus's Wars of the Jews. Now the tribulation inside Jerusalem during the Jewish wars happened exactly as Jesus predicted some 30 years earlier, and it all happened within the time frame he gave, which was their near future and their own generation before they all passed away. Now the Jewish wars were the tribulation Jesus warned his disciples about. That is why the tribulation Jesus predicted is not in our future, it was their future 2,000 years ago.